in the time after King Arthur, River Run. We have surely seen the infusion and the influence of the Almanac into our story. We also have some further inkling of whom the last knights may be. They are us. Yes, those who would celebrate the romance of existence, those of us who can still adapt and learn from the simple wisdom dispensed by the Almanac of our forefathers. Those of us who still live in a world of sights, sounds, and natural urges, as opposed to a world of abstractions, generalizations, and disassociation with one's fellows. The best definition of the word almanac is the word itself, that is, all man's knack, or sometimes all my knack. So, find your knack for life herein. We will continue to sing the songs of life in our pages, for as long as we do, it will keep us from ever withering, from ever stagnating. The faceless sea will continue to pass us by like a wave around an island as we defend our friendly little paradise and bathe in our beloved river sunshine, fleeting though it be sometimes. Yes, let us be alive with a song that only life itself could write. Let us make our presence known with no regrets. Let us start a song that we cannot help but to continue to sing. Do these things and you will never be alone. Recreate the joy of being human and find wonder in nature and reality, for other seas are dark and cold with a bitter wind that beats against your face. Our wind will be forever warm and caressing us, for we are braced by the calm of nature and the sanity of the earth. Yes, we allow both sides of the brain to coexist. So take a good hard look, all of you who pass here. And especially you, dear reader, the last night. Know thou that the world looks for more from thee than from others. Our story Percival has now come full circle. He is with the born-again wayfarer on the river in her ship.
It feels as though I have been here before, yet everything seems so different.
Life is a circle, Percival. What was lost is found again in a new form.
Perhaps he is still in mourning for Guinevere, but we do not know. The scene Percival and the born-again wayfarer are romancing on the Uthran River at the Port of Missing Men restaurant in the month of June.
Are you still the wayfarer?
No, Percival, I am no longer the wayfarer, although I do have a good recollection of her life. No, I am as I was long ago before the curse was placed on me, a young girl of only 23 summers, for I have earned my way back. However, all of my former contemporaries are dead and buried, and I am having trouble remembering my name. Oh, Percival, I am orphaned on the forgotten seas of time, although returned to my former state by either the blessing or the downfall of some of the older gods. I am so alone now, Percival. Oh, now you must be the wiser, but you will be proud of me, for this time around I will live my life much more nobly. Yes, I have been reborn, and so I belong to the world now in my service, much as you do as a king. I am taking a new name. Now I am to be called Evie, after evening chimes, the new eve of paradise regained.
Evie, it's a beautiful name.
Oh, Percival, do you hear the sounds? Can you hear it, Percival?
I hear it, and it is music to me, for it can only be the serenade fish, a voice that outsings even the nightingale. They say that only the pure of heart can hear it, and I thought never to hear it again, my dear Evie. Where did you get this ship, my dear, for it is over a century old?
So am I, Percival, or was. But now I have my life to live over again. A rare privilege, one that many would die for. But now I have my life to live over again. A rare privilege, one that many would die for. The river is lonely today, but smell the salty breezes. See the fish jumping over the bow. Watch the tide going out, and look at the clouds forming over the mountains. It is a paradise, is it not?
Yes, it is, and many do not even know of its existence. Let us stop and have lunch in the cove.
Percival had just finished some pork skin when he spotted ship after Viking ship coursing up the once peaceful river.
Christian or heathen, she asked.
Heathen, but Vikings coming inland, usually they only hit the seashore. It is unusual that they would come inland unless
Unless it was an invasion. The Viking ships sailed underneath the cover of the clouds which hid the full strawberry moon. Soon, the first of many river villages began to fall. The first village took the brunt of the attack, and the rest were empty by the time that the Norsemen reached them. An ugly infection was quickly spreading through the main artery of Britain.
we must retreat for now and report to Taliesin all that we have seen, for we are too few here to beat them back. And even at Camelot our knights are all old and toothless. We need a war trick, but none comes to mind. But still, there is always hope. Taliesin will answer me with his thoughts on the wind. God, it will take the luck of the moon to win this one, but I have not come this far only to see it all crumble in a day.
The king's guard had now arrived at the river's edge, a good but small force. A message was flown to Taliesin by pigeon stating 20 Viking ships coming up the Uthrin, staying only long enough at each village to load up food and war material. Taliesin's weather-wise answer came before morning and read,
"The Viking raiders must be steered up the Severn no later than mid-afternoon. There is a fork off the Uthrin River."
in the home after King Arthur.
Oh, I've got the trick now too. The Vikings are not river-wise, for they know only the open sea, and this is our land. An advantage must be conceded to us here. Let us take to your ship and unfold the scheme. Run the ship through the fog, my wandering friend, and ease it right around to the head of the Viking fleet, for they've rested on the shore for the night. Don't worry, I know this river well, even at night, and I will guide you. Let us be sure to fly the king's flag, for then they will surely follow us through the cutover and into the narrow Severn River. If they take the bait, then they will meet an effect called the river bore. It is a 40-foot high wall of water that comes with the tide, one of the highest tide waves anywhere. It will hit them first, and when you see their ship scattering, then head for the shore before it can sink us and ground the ship on the sand.
She eased the old ship past the Vikings sleeping on the shore, her navigation aided by the full moon, now showing, and by Percival's river knowledge.
They don't see us yet, Percival.
Good, we need a little head start, but we shall make sure that they notice. Come very close to them.
The Viking chief could hardly believe his eyes when he saw the British king's ship appear out of the fog like a dream vision. It was coming by at full speed as it caught the morning breezes, and it came so close to the shore that it created waves that washed everyone awake when it wet their toes. The Vikings were slow to move, however, being groggy from the night's celebration of drink. The Viking chief Thorelf soon drove them to their ships with a roar, and they were in fast pursuit of the prize that was a king. The breezes died well after sunrise, and so the Viking warships were able to gain on the good king's ship, which relied only on its sail. And towards early afternoon, Perceval held but a slim lead as all ships entered the fork to the Severn. Luckily, the winds picked up again, and Perceval's lighter ship could maintain its lead. The monthly tide wave had already entered the back part of the river near the harbor, where the young knights dined at the port of missing men, where the warning bells rang and diners lifted their feet, as the high deck were washed by the splashes of the river bore. Of course, it would be much worse farther down the river. It was a wall of water growing higher and higher as the river channel narrowed in the Severn. The Viking ships in the rear of the fleet, the older, weaker ships, fell first as the river tide bore them down. The ships were smashed against the rocks in this very narrow portion of the Severn, Where the tide was the highest, Thorelf's Viking flagship tried to beat the wave by veering hard to starboard to gain the safety of a river island. But this was a bad move. As the mighty warship was hit broadside and was quickly swamped, Percival's ship had no time to make shore, but grounded itself on the river island as they were carried inland by the huge tidal wave. Most the armor-heavy Vikings were drowned or swept away, but towards evening an exhausted Viking chief began to gain his strength on the island beach not far from Percival and his party. The tide wave bore its way past the Severn country inn, where Taliesin watched and heard the death screams in his mind, while he gazed over the fields of purple heather waving in the heartland, a land now safe for the time being. It was a steamy, metal night on the river island. Not a breeze was to be felt. Sweat dripped on one's cheeks even as he lay still, wrung out by the day's events. Night fell, and was brightened by the perpetual twilight that lasted all night this time of year in Britain, and by the bright moon which was only a day past full, in the time after King Arthur.
Good night, Moon.
Good night, Percival. Live and be free or die.
Thorelf thought but for a second and then threw the axe directly at Percival, end over end. It glanced off Percival's sword and knocked it to the ground. Both men just stood and stared at each other.
Percival replied calmly, "Your fleet has been defeated by none other than your own abandonment of nature and her ways. You forgot about the moon because it was cloudy and the nights are short this time of year. There is your conqueror, Viking chief. There in the sky just over your left shoulder it hangs there near Jupiter."
Thorelf chanced to glance at the moon, yet in that instant Percival retrieved his sword and spoke. Each month the full moon and the sun conspire to raise a 40-foot tide down the Severn. The Viking chief just walked away, moonstruck perhaps. Percival did not attack him but wondered. Perhaps there comes a time in an evil man's life when he wonders what he has become and of the terrible deeds that he has done. And so Percival threw his dart into a nearby tree as Thorelf walked off into the night. Well, these were the tides of life and death that swept through men's hearts from time to time. They could take you to new highs or lows, and now and then you stayed there, and sometimes you fell back. It was well after midnight now, and Leo had already duvet into the west. Mars was passing Saturn, and Antares, the heart of the Scorpion, was already rising in the southwest.